Hey, Amanda.
Hi, Kerry.
Okay, so we're going to go straight down onto the floor and we're going to do a quick release work. So we're going to do some, we always think about balance as being standing on one leg, but the rolling pin is going to give us some really great feedback, as is the book or the block. But we're going to do a little bit of release first, and then we're going to do some mobility, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. So taking that ball, coming onto your backs, we're going to go straight into our glute max. So on your right buttock, into your right buttock, taking your feet hip distance apart. Okay, level off that pelvis, neutral spine, so space for that blueberry underneath your lower back. And you're going to drop that, drop that right leg out to the side and draw it back in again. So as we continue from last week we left some movements, and we just held a position for quite a while to see if those muscles would release over the ball or lengthen as well. So what we're going to do here is, if you found that the ball is really being pushed out by the muscle structure in the buttock, then see if you can hold it there a little bit longer. You may get some neural feedback going down your leg. So you might get some tingling sensation going down your leg. Just move the ball away from that area if you are getting that neural feedback. Okay, so you're just taking the knee in and out and moving that ball around just to get into that lovely spot that needs releasing. Okay. Let's extend. So the knee's coming out to the right hand side. We're going to extend that right leg away and then draw that leg back in and then bring that knee back to the vertical. Okay, so take that knee out, extend the leg away. So 3 movements, and 1, 2, or all 3 can be fairly uncomfortable, but they should ease off. So we do want to be mindful of the fact that they should ease off as we get this movement going. So knee drops out, extends the leg away, foot stays on the floor, and then you bring that knee back to the vertical position. So I'll show you head on here as well. So knee drops out, leg extends away, draw that leg back in, knee comes back to the vertical. So it should start feeling like it's easing off a bit. So we're going to have a quick scan round the prime suspects, as it were, or main suspects of our tight areas of tightness in our body. Last one. And then draw back in. Okay, we're going to move that ball into the QL muscle. So in that space, muscle structure between your pelvis and your rib cage. So put your hands on your hips, move into the muscle between your hands on your hips and your rib cage. And then you're going to bring those knees together, feet together, and then you're going to gently rock both knees over to that right hand side and come back to center. So arms can be over your chest, just warming up those obliques, or they can be down by your side. You might want to move that ball a little bit wider or a little bit closer to your spine. Listen or feel for where you are tighter in that movement. Just trying to make a little inroad into those deep back muscles. Couple more. Last one. Good. And then we're going to take that ball and with your left hand, place your left hand over the top of your right shoulder. Feel for your top bony structure of your shoulder blade, so spine of scapula, and then you're going to come into the muscle just above that. So it's between your neck and the top of your shoulder. So you're going to jam that ball in. You might need to hold it there so it doesn't move. Feet are back to hip distance apart, and we're going to float that right arm overhead, trying to keep that elbow lengthened. So It might feel like it's going right up the back of your head as well, especially if you're fairly tight through that area. I'm just having to keep my fingertips on it because it wants to pop out here. So you've felt above the spine of your shoulder blade, and you're coming into that soft tissue, or it might be a little bit hard, but it is muscle rather than bone. Keeping that elbow lengthened, so we don't want to be bending that right elbow. It stays nice and long. You're not necessarily trying to touch the floor behind you, okay? So we're not into touching that floor behind us unless you've got really good mobility through the shoulder. What we are trying to do is loosen off that muscle structure between the neck and the top of the shoulder. And for some of us, it can be super tight. So you might feel that feedback going into the skull, even above the eyebrows, dependent on how tight you are. A couple more. Don't forget to breathe. So go from that flight fright breathing, so oh my goodness, this is really sore, to a deeper breath cycle. Last one. Okay, let's go straight over to the other shoulder. So with your right fingertips, move your right fingertips across to your top of the left shoulder blade. Just check in the soft tissue above that shoulder blade. Put the ball in. Take that left arm up towards the ceiling. Hold that ball there if you need to, and then float that left arm overhead, keeping that elbow lengthened. We've still got our neutral spine, so just keeping that space for the blueberry underneath your lower back. Feet are hip distance apart. Just jamming that ball in. Couple more here. Keeping those shoulder blades nicely connected to the mat. Last one. And then we're going to take that ball and jam it into our QL muscle on our left-hand side. So on that left-hand side, lift your bum up. Just place your hands on that hip, the pelvis, and then you're just above the rim of the pelvis. You're going to keep those feet together, and then you're going to drop both knees over to the left-hand side and then back up to neutral. So just gently massaging that muscle structure between your pelvis and your rib cage. It is deep here, this particular muscle structure. You will feel other muscles above that just easing off potentially. Couple more. Last one. And then we're going to jam the ball into the left buttock. So jamming that ball into the left buttock, feet are back to hip distance apart, neutral spine, and we're going to lower that left knee out to the side. So those first couple can be pretty intense, so it can take your breath away. If you're finding that it's a little bit tight, you can hold that knee out to the left-hand side and allow those muscles to just lengthen and ease off. So the muscles themselves will try and repel the ball, but you can hold it there and just see if you can get a little bit deeper. You can go a little bit further out. So move that ball around to see where that most uncomfortable area is. Don't forget to breathe. Relax those shoulders. So you might find the jaw tenses or the shoulders lift off as if it's really uncomfortable. And then we're going to extend that left leg away from the body, draw it back in, and then return to the knee to the upright position. Good, well done. Don't forget to breathe. So try and come out of your fight-flight breathing and into your restorative breathing. Last one. And release off there. Okay, that ball's coming out of the way now. We're going to start working into some mobility exercises, and we're going to start with our hip twist too. So feet are back together, the ball's out the way now, arms are out towards the side, palms facing upwards, resting on the floor. We're going to drop both knees over to that right hand side, back to center, and then over to the left-hand side. Now, the key with this one is that top knee needs to be on the bottom knee. So if you're going too far across and that top knee is sliding back from your bottom knee, reduce the range of movement. You need to be bossy with this posture to get that lovely spinal rotation without compromising the pelvic movement. So you might find that you start wriggling down the mat. You can use a bit more pressure on those heels to gently push you back up to your starting point. You can take your head in the opposite direction to increase that movement through the spine. So we're warming up here. We want those knees absolutely stacked. We want those inner thighs absolutely clamped together to activate those oblique muscles and the adductors. Good, a couple more. Now, if you want a little bit of neural flossing here, as you look at your hand, palm is going down towards the floor. So as you look at the palm, look at your hand, the palm is down towards the floor. Couple more. With that neural flossing, just nudging a little bit further each time. Shoulders stay on. And then release off there. Okay, we're going to start warming up those abdominals. So we're coming into our scissors, feet are back to hip distance apart, neutral spine. We want to bring that right leg into tabletop, lower back down, bring the left leg into tabletop. Now with this position, what you can do is just take hold of your rolling pin, okay, rest it on your pelvis, okay, and you will get a really good feedback as to whether or not your pelvis is rocking from side to side or forwards and backwards. Don't forget, we've got our space underneath the lower back for our blueberry. Our knee is coming to the vertical and then returning, and your roller should be resting on those, well, on my case, I've just had my tea, so it's resting on my belly. Okay. We do want it to not roll off. Okay, so that pelvis stays nice and level. You can put your thumbs on your rib cage and your fingertips on your bony protrusions at the front of the pelvis, and that will give you some good feedback as well. Relax those shoulders for 3 and 2 and 1. Okay, just put the rolling pin down. We're going to bring that right knee in towards the chest and lengthen the left leg away. You can add a little abdo prep with this, so a little bit more flexion by taking the head off the floor and keeping the distance between your chin and your chest. So you're not tucking the chin in towards the chest here, you're having it as like at the space of an orange. So you can add that abdo prep if you wish, not too much work on those neck muscles. Lower back down, land the foot on the floor, change sides, left knee comes in, extend your right leg away, into abdo prep if that feels okay for you, warming up those neck muscles. Okay, but if not, you keep your head on the floor. Okay, change sides again. So into your hip flexor stretch, lengthening through your hip, into abdo prep if you wish. If you've got into abdo prep, make sure you haven't squashed your blueberry. We still want that neutral spine. Okay, a little bit harder. Okay, lower and change. Breathe. Hold for 2 breath cycles, neutral spine, so don't squash your blueberry. So it is harder to do to keep that neutral position here. And lower back down. Last one. So bring that right knee in, into abdo prep if that feels okay. Reposition that pelvis and onto the left-hand side. Reposition the pelvis. Good. Abdo prep. So just note the difference between the two. Can you bring that knee in towards the chest, but still keep your abdo prep position or neutral spine, and release off there. Okay, we're going to float both arms overhead. We're coming into a little bit of back extension here. We're going to allow the breastbone to lift and a space to be created between your shoulder blades. So as you exhale, you float over, inhale, return. Exhale, float. Inhale, return. Allow the breastbone to lift off the floor and then return to the floor. Sorry, allow the shoulder blades to lift off the floor and then return and sink back onto the floor. So we've got a little bit of back extension, not much, but you should feel a space being created between those shoulder blades as you float those arms overhead, lifting the breastbone as you do, and then returning it to its starting position. 2 more. Okay, we're going to add the knee hug. So those arms float over. As we come back, we come into our abdo prep and then return. Change sides. Left knee comes up, squeeze, and then float those arms overhead into slight extension. Last one here on the right, squeeze and lower back down into extension on the upper back, and then squeeze on your left into extension. Okay, a little bit of hamstring work here. Knee comes, hands come on that right knee again. And then as we lengthen that right leg, arms are going to float overhead. Exhale and squeeze. So we're just working on that right leg now. So going from a bent knee to a lengthened leg. Now, you may have squashed your blueberry here as you've taken that leg up towards the ceiling. What I would like you to do is unsquash it. So sometimes when we have tight hamstrings, so you might be here, okay, so you might have that leg extended and it might be in line with your left leg, and that's absolutely fine. But what we often find is that when we're tight through the hamstrings, we will squash the blueberry, so that pelvis will tilt backwards. Okay, last one on that right hand side, alternating between hip flexion and a hamstring. And let's come onto the left hand side. So we squeeze that left knee, then we extend the left leg up, float the arms overhead, squeeze the left knee, extend the left leg up and take the arms overhead. So you might find that you can get a little bit deeper on one leg more than the other. Breathe, but don't squash that blueberry. 2 more. Last one. And release off there. Good. Okay, so we are going to come into our 100s just to get some breathing patterns going on through the diaphragm to warm up that diaphragm. So our arms are down by our side, palms facing downwards. Okay, reach with those fingertips down towards your toes. And again, you can stick your rolling pin on your pelvis. So this will give a really good indication of how much you're moving through your pelvic area. Neutral spine, space for that blueberry. And we're going to bring our right leg into tabletop. So right leg's going to come up into tabletop. So you've got an option here, either abdo prep or not abdo prep. So we're going to breathe in for 5. So we're going to float those arms up and down. Okay, so we're floating, pulsing those arms up and down. And we're going to breathe in for 5 and then out for 5. So we're going to set off now. So in for 5 and out. In 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 and out. 2 more. In and out. In and out. And release off there. Okay, let's go into our left leg into tabletop. So you've got that option of abdo prep, lifting that head off the floor or resting it on the floor. But you should be still in neutral. So we're looking for neutral spine on that lower back, space for that blueberry. And we're going to reach those fingertips down towards those toes again, floating the arms off the floor. So we've started our little pulse here. And then abdo prep or not, whichever works for you. and then we are starting our breathing. So in for 5 and out. Little bit of activity on that pelvic floor. In and out. 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 Last one, in and out. And release off there. Good. Okay, so nice warm up there. We're going to come onto our, stay on our backs, and we are going to come into hip twist 1. So that roller is going onto our pelvis again. So hip twist 1, the feet come together and the right knee is going to drop out to the right hand side with those feet together. Arms are going to come across the chest here, and then we're going to draw it back in again. And then left knee is going to drop out and draw it back in. Squeeze those inner thighs together as you bring those knees back together again. Right leg drops out, feet are together. So this is a starting point for our stability movements. So as that knee drops out, that roller should be staying absolutely level. So if it should have put a spirit level on here, actually. We've still got space for the blueberry underneath our lower back. Okay, so you still have space for that blueberry. Relax those toes, arms across your shoulders, so you're not relying on your arms or upper back to stabilize you. One more on each side. And then releasing off there. So finish on that left-hand side. Good, okay. So right leg's coming up into tabletop, feet are back to hip distance apart. And we're going to draw our circles with our right knee. So we're drawing them, you can go clockwise or anti-clockwise to start off with. Okay, so keeping that pelvis nice and stable, arms across the chest, and there shouldn't be any lifting of your left buttock. So left buttock and left glute are helping to stabilize your pelvis. Relax those shoulders, so no tension, no shoulders. Let's change direction. So imagine you've got a plate hovering above your right knee and you are circling the outside of that plate. Relax those shoulders, make sure they're not kicking in. Open the jaw if you need to. For 3 and 2 and 1. Okay, drop that foot to the floor. Left leg is coming up into tabletop. So pelvis, the roller is acting as a spirit level, and we are circling around in the opposite direction. You might notice that it is harder to stabilize the pelvis on one side than it is on the other. Shoulders are completely relaxed, jaws relaxed. You might notice that this isn't so much a circle, it might be a hexagon, it might be a square. I hope it's not a straight line. Let's change direction. For 5, relax those shoulders. 4, neutral spine, space for your blueberry. 2 and 1. So you might have got some work into those hip flexors as well. So that's really common here as well. Okay, we are going to come over onto our right hand side, and we're going to stick that rolling pin underneath our right waist. Okay, so we're coming down onto our right hand side. The knees are bent, the heels are in line. Okay, now the roller's going to give you feedback. When we lift that top leg, the roller will give you feedback as to how much you end up pushing into it. So our head's fully supported. And what I want you to do here is now place your book. So you're going to bring your knee up to tabletop, and you're going to place your book on your thigh and your calf. Okay, so it's sideways on, and that book or block is going to stay there. Okay, you're going to get loads of feedback from this. Okay, so we are going to move that right knee forwards and then bring it back. Right knee, sorry, top knee, not right knee, absolute rubbish. It's the left one. Okay, so the left leg is moving. Now, if you are pushing your lower waist, so your right waist into that roller, stop it, in a word. Okay, so the top leg is moving forwards and backwards. We've got a flexed foot here, but we haven't got any pressure on the roller on the right hand side of our body. Sorry, I had to think about my left and right then. Okay, squeeze into that left buttock. So you want a little squeeze of that left buttock when you take that leg behind you. For 3. No pressure on that roller. 2. And 1. Okay, now you might need to move the book up a bit, but we're going to take that book and put it on our thigh and extend that top leg. Okay, and we're going to add our lift and lower here. Okay, so the book or the block is on the top of your thigh. It shouldn't fall off unless it's a super slippy book. Okay, a little bit of weight here, but as we lift that book up, can you still keep the space for your roller? Okay, so keep that space for the roller. The pelvis has got to be stacked, otherwise the book will fall off, so it'll fall off forwards or backwards. The 3 and 2 and 1. Okay, release your bottom. So if you have found that that's really come into your buttocks, release off there. Okay, so book's going back on. Book or block back on. Making sure you've got space for your roller. Okay, so we're not squashing into the roller. We don't want to just change that position. Okay, we're going to draw a figure of 8, and this figure of 8 is our infinity sign. Okay, so it's not a upright figure of 8, it's a figure of 8 on its side. Relax those shoulders. You might need a finger to the floor in front of you. Okay, we've got that bottom knee bent, so we shouldn't really. Keeping that book on your thigh. Let's reverse that position. 4. Haven't done any sideline for a bit, have we? Soon kicks in. The 3 and 2 and 1 and release off there. Bring that knee in, squash the roller. Okay. So we're coming over onto our backs, okay, and we are going to do our the rollers coming off and the blocks coming off on this one, okay. So we have got our feet together, and what we're going to do is bring those knees over to the right hand side, but not too far, because, and I'll show you head on with this one. So as those knees, the hands are across the chest, so we're not relying on the shoulder muscles to help us. The knees have dropped over to the right hand side, and we're going to extend that left leg. Okay, now don't push too hard into the right foot. Use the obliques to draw your leg back to your starting point. Lower that left foot to the floor and then come over to the left hand side. Extend your right leg. Use the pelvic floor. So squeeze the pelvic floor first. Squeeze those inner thighs together as much as you can, because that will activate the obliques, and then lower the foot to the floor when you come back to your starting point. Okay, take both knees over to that right hand side again. Maybe go a little bit further. Explore that ability or strength of your obliques to bring you back to your starting point. If you go too far, you'll lose your balance. Use your breath. So as you exhale, lift that pelvic floor, draw the legs back to your starting point. Over to the opposite side. Keep those arms off the floor. Use your abdominals here. Keeping those inner thighs super active. Shoulders remain on the floor and try not to push down on that lower foot. Okay, so really try not to use the pressure onto that lower foot. Couple more on each side. Try not to lift those shoulders, keeping them firmly on the floor. And release off there. Good. Okay, so we are going to come over into all fours. Okay, so over onto all fours, and we're going to place the book or the block on our shoulders. You can do it with the roller, but you're likely to get clunked with it. So I've gone for the book on this one. Okay, a little bit more stable. But you will feel those shoulder blades. So if you draw your breastbone down towards the floor, you'll feel the shoulder blades just connecting into the book. But if you draw the breastbone away from the floor, then you'll feel that change again. So we want to go halfway in between the two. So we don't want those breastbones down towards the floor and those shoulder blades lifted. We want to be in our neutral position, and the book will give us that feedback. So knees are hip distance apart. We're going to come into cat paw. So that right elbow is going to bend, and we are going to lift and lower that right elbow, or bend that right elbow. Now you may feel a transfer of weight all over to that right knee and the left arm. Left arm, absolutely, because we're doing cat paw. But can you transfer some of the weight without shifting your body? So pushing down into that left knee a little bit. Okay, so a little bit activity through your abdominals here. You'll feel those abdominals tensing, but we want to make sure that we're lifting out through those shoulders. So the book stays absolutely stable and doesn't hit you on the head. Okay, straight into that left-hand side now. So left elbow is going to bend and then release. Feel the transfer of weight on those knees now as well. Make sure that your breastbone is elevated. We've got some activity going through those abdominals for 3 and 2 and 1. Okay, take the hold of the book, make sure it doesn't clunk you on the head, and just release those wrists. So circle those wrists round into your high kneeling. These exercises come with a health warning. Either don't get hit by your rolling pin or your book. Shake them out. Okay, put the book back on your shoulders. Don't let it come down again. If you're feeling particularly brave, you could try the rolling pin. Okay, so neutral position. Okay, so feel those shoulder blades, and we're going to now float that right arm. And it is a float rather than a reach. So when we take that arm away from our body, we want to make sure that the right rib cage is fully connected to the right hips. Again, note the difference between the weight distribution between those two knees. You won't be able to equalize it completely, but you might be able to get a little bit more work going into that right knee and the left knee. Okay, let's swap over. So float and return. Lift up through the back of the head. I could have got you to put the book on the back of the head. Use those neck flexors. Okay, make sure your shoulder blades are as flat as they can be and your breastbone is elevated from the mat. So we're really working deep into those shoulders, but across our abdominals. Last 2. Good, floating and release off there. Okay, take hold of your book, make sure it doesn't hit your head, and then shake out. So come into your shell stretch here. So if there's any tension in that lower back, you'll just feel that releasing off a little bit. And we get deep into those hips and the lower back as well. Okay. So we're going to come over to our left-hand side. So we're going to do the same series on our left-hand side, okay? So placing the roller underneath your left gap between your hips and your ribs, onto your side, so supporting your head, bending your knees so your heels are in line with your bum, placing the book on top of your top leg. And then you're going to lift up to a level position, and then you're going to move that knee forwards and backwards. Okay, so we're doing it's a bit like our reverse kick here, but that pelvis has to stay nice and level. And just note if you're pushing down through your waist on that left-hand side. Can you keep it active? Can you keep that spine parallel to the mat? So flexing that right foot, squeeze into that right buttock. If you're not sure, get your fingers in that right buttock, but try and squeeze into that right buttock as you draw that leg behind you. Okay, keeping that upper body beautifully stable. The 3, collarbones are open. 2, shoulders are relaxed, and 1, and release off there. Okay, let's extend that top leg. So again, resting the book on the thigh, and we're going to lift and lower. So when we lift and lower, make sure that you're not squashing that rolling pin. Okay, we often use the analogy with the blueberry, but it's really easy to squash the blueberry without really noticing. So with having the rolling pin underneath, you will get really good feedback as to whether or not your pelvis is tilting over to one side or not. The 5 and 4 and 3. This is why I said don't have a really heavy book. 2 and 1, and release off there. Okay, take the book off, give yourselves a pat. Okay, book comes back on, or block comes back on, and we're going to come into our figure of 8. So we've got this figure of 8, so hip distance apart, figure of 8, doesn't matter which direction, but the key is what is happening to your waist and that rolling pin. Plus the leg needs to be nice and stable. So if your pelvis is twisting, your book will fall off. That needs to be nice and level. Okay, can we reverse that figure of 8 now? And it is a flat figure of 8. Oh, crikey. So you should be feeling this in your buttocks. You might be feeling it into the sides of the hips. As the work becomes harder, breathe. Relax the jaw, relax the shoulders, go right into that buttock. 2 and 1, and release off there. Oh. I don't know about you, but I think I squashed my roller pin on that side. They're definitely different positions with our postures, but that just gives great feedback. Okay, we're going back into all fours again. And this time, so we're using the rolling pin because it's going to be on our bum. Okay, so it's not going to hit us on the head on this one. Okay, but if you've got a marble rolling pin, maybe use your book. Some of them you have marbles, they're really heavy, aren't they? Okay, so the rolling pin is going on your bum. Okay, head elevated. Okay, so with this movement, feet are shoulders are hip distance apart, or hands are hip distance apart, and we're going to extend that right leg. Okay, so we're extending that right leg and then drawing it back in and extending that left leg. Keep the foot on the floor. Okay, so keep that foot on the floor. If your rolling pin has rolled off, then you need to either reduce that range of movement, because you could be overstretching, or ensure that your tailbone is in neutral. Lift those breastbones away from the mat. We're taking the legs out one at a time, alternating from one side to the other. And we've got that proprioception, so we've got our feet on the floor, so we should know where our pelvis is in space. Okay. We're also going to get clobbered with the rolling pin if we don't. 2 and 1. And release off there. Okay, just release those wrists and take hold of your rolling pin and shake those wrists out. Good. Okay, rolling pin comes back on. Okay, and we are going to extend that right leg. So right leg's going to extend, it's going to hover off the floor, and then we're going to inwardly rotate the hip. So if I show you, actually, it's not the best position with my bum facing you, but it will show you what's happening with the hip. So you're extending that right leg. Okay, you're going to inwardly rotate the right hip, and it's going to come across without the knee bending to the left-hand side. Then you're going to outwardly rotate the hip, and it's going to come out to the side. So inwardly rotate, draw it across your body. Outwardly rotate, take it out. Inwardly rotate. So you will be, how far you go will be determined by your roller. Okay, so if you're super wiggly, that roller is going to fly off. Okay, small movements, not how far we go. You should feel those abdominals really working to stabilize you through this movement. We're getting a lovely movement through the hip, but simultaneously, we're getting a lot of work through those abdominals. Lift those breastbones away from the mat. Keep that neck elevated. So we shouldn't be looking. We should be nice and working through those neck muscles for 3 and 2. Make sure that left hip stays over the left knee, and 1. Okay, release off there. So take hold of your roller. Make sure it's not going to roll onto your head and come into your shell stretch. Oh, excuse me. Oh, nice. Oh, excuse me. It can't be hay fever season already. I've been in the garden. Okay, so we're going to do the same with the other leg. Roller goes on your bum. Okay, neutral spine. Extend that left leg away. Keep that right hip over the right knee. Push gently into the floor with both hands. Hover that left leg off the floor. Inwardly rotate the hip and take that left leg across the right leg. Outwardly rotate the hip and take it out to the side. So inward rotation and outward rotation. Note the difference between the two sides' ability to stabilize you through this movement. Gently push down through both hands. So we want that stability through both shoulders, lifting up through both shoulders to make sure that we have that work going through the upper body as well. 2 more. Good, last one. And release off there. Okay, take hold of your roller. Good. So we're coming back onto our right hand side. Okay, take the roller. And we are going to come into our leg lifts. So we've got that roller underneath our waist on the right hand side. Now you can have that bottom leg bent, okay, or have it lengthened, okay. So we're coming into our leg lift. So you can have that bottom leg, as I say, having the bottom leg lift bent is, apologies, actually that's rubbish. You need both legs lengthened and you need to be able to see your toes. Sorry, wrong exercise. Okay, your hand might be on the floor in front of you just to help that stability slightly. Okay, so the right leg, the top leg's coming up to hip height, not too far, okay, and then the left leg or the lower leg is going to lift and join it, okay, and then bottom leg lowers, top leg lowers, top leg lifts, bottom leg lifts. Now, what's happening to your waist when you do this? Okay, we should still be able to keep a really light touch on our waist when we lift that bottom leg up. If we're trying too hard to lift those legs too high, then you will have that problem of squashing your blueberry or squashing your roller. Okay, now these are working these obliques, so they're working your waist muscles. So we should be able to keep that waist active. Try not to lift too high and squash your roller onto, or your waist onto the roller. Just be mindful of that lower shoulder, okay? So make sure that that lower shoulder is not pushing too deeply into the floor. It will be active a little bit, but we want these waist muscles to really be super active. You can have your hands on them and you can feel them tightening underneath that movement. Last one. And lower back down again. Okay, we're back into our all fours. And we're going to take that block and have it underneath onto our bum. Okay, so blocks going onto the bum. Okay, so our right leg, I'll come around the other way. So our right leg is coming up into a bent knee position, okay, and we're going to kick the ceiling, not literally, with our right heel. Now the key with this exercise is that that book will give you feedback as to whether or not your pelvis is tilting. Allow the knee to go right down to the floor, so it's not half a movement, it's a full range of movement. That right buttock should be tightening as you bring that heel up towards the ceiling. So we're doing our donkey kick here. So knee comes down and then push back up, squeeze into that right buttock. Push gently away with your hands into the mat. That book should feel like nothing is changing, or the back should feel like nothing is changing underneath that book. The 3, lift up that breastbone, lift the head up if you're starting to look. 2, and 1, and release off there. Okay, just take a release on those wrists. So quite a bit of bone loading on the wrist tonight. You can do that in shell stretch, in puppy, or just sit up and wiggle those wrists around, whichever feels right for you. Okay, let's come into that left-hand side. So book goes on your bum again. Get it rested on the back of the pelvis, so you can get that feedback into that lower back as well. Set up your all fours position. Okay, a little bit of activation in those abs. Bend that left knee and squeeze that left buttock. So squeezing that left buttock as you take that left foot up towards the ceiling. Okay, push gently down through both hands. 5, 4, squeezing into that left buttock. 3, and 2, and 1, and release off there. Okay, remove that block or book and take hold of your roller. Place it underneath your left waist again. So left waist, legs are going to extend. Make sure you can see your toes on this one. So we've got that soft banana shape. You can have your fingertips in front of you on the mat in front of you if you wish to help you stabilize. Okay, we're going to start off with that right top leg lifting and bottom legs coming to join it. Bottom leg lowers, top leg lowers. Note the difference between the two sides. So can be quite significant, but we want to make sure that we're not pushing down into that rolling pin. Okay, so if you're finding that you're pushing down, then reduce that range of movement. Really contracting through that pelvic floor to aid your lower abdominals. The 3. Open up those collarbones. 2. And 1. Good, and release off there. Okay, take that rolling pin out from underneath you, and then we are rolling over onto our backs. Okay. So we're going to bring that right foot and rest it on our left knee. Right foot, left knee. You can remove your rolling pin and your block out of the way. So right foot, left knee. And then we're going to interlace our hands and grab hold of the back of our left thigh and come into our piriformis stretch. So having worked those muscles in our one leg kicks and leg lifters, coming into our piriformis stretch. Okay, add a little pelvic tilt here. So squash your blueberry and then release it off. Squash it and release it. So you'll get a little rocking of that pelvis, which will just change the stretch into your glutes if you are tight. 2 and 1. Okay, land your left foot on the floor. Right ankle is staying on the left knee. Right ankle stays on the left knee, and drift the right foot over to the left hand side. So we're coming across the midline of the body. So into a deep stretch into that right hip, right buttock, but also into the spine as well. Take that deep inhale and exhale. You might find that you can land the foot on the floor, but the ankle stays on the knee. So it's a wide knee movement. Okay, so ankle stays on the knee. The knee stays open. You might find if you're tight that your knee has wanted to come in towards your chest. If that's the case, try and push it gently away. Keep the shoulders on the floor. So allow those shoulders to stay on the floor for 3 and 2. Breathe and 1. And then use your obliques to draw you back to your starting point. Okay, land that right foot on the floor. Place your left ankle on your right knee. Take your hands behind your right thigh, interlace those fingertips. And then add your little pelvic tilt. Hi. Yes. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, guys. Husband's gone out and a delivery at this time of night. What's going on? Okay. So land that left foot over towards the right hand side, opening up the knee as you go. Take that breath. For 3. Keep those shoulders on the floor. 2. And 1. Draw back to center. Come into your double knee hug. Okay, so double knee hug. Rock forwards and backwards. Circle round in one direction. Massaging your lower back into the mat. And circle round in the opposite direction. 3 and 2 and 1. Land your feet on the floor one at a time, roll over onto your sides, push back up and release off there. Whew. Well done, everybody. You can do whatever you like with the rolling pin now.